Right into the story I was going to talk about?
I didn't, but I'm here for it.
Another business my wife, the reason I do this is my wife will not give me an income.
That's fair.
I bet she spends it though.
I took care of her butt for a bunch of years, and this time she took care of mine.
I think you get it out, man. Go ahead.
I took early retirement many years ago. We started the auction house, and then after we started the auction house, we had unused time. You know, we weren't having auctions every week, and a buddy of mine goes, Craig, I got a great idea for you. He married a girl from Russia, and over in Russia and Europe, they were doing this thing called escape games. Only over in Russia, they were using big gutted out buildings. And they were like star chambers. They were like star chambers,
He's
man.
still healing.
I mean they were. You talk about arcade and scary and death threatening. Over there, some of the ones they've had are amazing. And they're really fun. Anyway, they started doing more commercial stuff with it. So he brought the idea back for the escape game to America. And we were both one of the first 25, 30 escape rooms in America. Created. So anyway, a couple of years ago, the Travel Channel came here with the new TV show they were filming called Haunted USA. And they selected us to shoot at Escape Savannah because one of the escape games we have is called Escape the Haunted Room. It's all about an aunt, a sweet little girl, and a fire. It's a love story.
Is that what it's about?
We
We felt like it was about a few locks, keys.
Well, that too. Well, that's to get out, keep them burning up. Anyway, so they sent a camera crew, and they filmed at Moon River Brewery. They filmed here. They filmed at Escape Savannah and one other place. So the day comes for our shoot, and I get over there to meet the producer and everybody. And we start talking. They said, so what have you done in town? How have you been? You know, what's going on? Well, we shot last night at 1790s. And I said, how did that go? Well, this is what I'm gonna and so she told me the story. And I'm fixing to give you that story because it's really interesting. But let me give you the background first. Back in the early 1800s, there was a girl named Anne who was a housekeeper here. She was given room and board. She was about 18, 19 years old. And during the day, she cleaned the rooms. And at night, she cleaned up with sailors. Get it? Okay, just make sure you get that clear. Anyway, so in the midst of her...
Yeah, there you are.
In the midst of her employing her evening trade, she fell in love with one of the sailors. His name was Stephen.
It's always one.
First mistake.
Now, the innkeeper did not like Stephen and did not like him on the property, but that didn't stop them from seeing each other. Well, the day came, Stephen had to go make a living again, go back to sea. And Ed goes, can I get up the next morning, come down to the docks and see you out? And Stephen said, I love that. Well, being the typical 18-year-old, she didn't get up. She missed her alarm. Didn't set it. She was late to the party. She gets down to the docks, and he's gone. He's already sailed away. So she gets, over time, very, very forlorn, very melancholy, and very depressed. You think yeah, there's enough other guys, she could have said, find another one. But she does something about this one guy. She couldn't shave. Well, one night, on the other side of this building, room 204, the third floor, she opened the window and jumped to her death. And ever since then, this place has been haunted. And we've all heard the stories about it. And all the tours tell the story. But they don't tell you this. So when the Travel Channel TV film crew was here from Haunted USA, they filmed here. First, they found two suckers, volunteers to spend the night. About 4 in the morning, the curtains start to open, the stuff on the vanity starts spinning, and the ultraviolet camera they put in the room started shaking violently. And it wasn't until the producer ran in and grabbed the camera that it stopped shaking. And I go, so what do you think? Well, stuff's real. We had no idea. This is just a job for us. We don't believe any of this stuff. They were just doing work. They had no beliefs in all that stuff. They go, now we do. So that was kind of, what I find interesting about that is here comes a TV show, and they validate the myth, the legend of the ghost of Anna that really existed. It really exists. And you don't have that all the time,
No.
you know. So it's great to have that firsthand validation,
Yeah.
you know.
It preceded the Ghost Brothers.
Come on, guys. Well, not yet. Let me go.
Way to pick up the pace, guys. What's up?
I made.
Oh, gotcha.
I got his next ring.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. I think I have a ghost crush on him.
A ghost crush.
Yeah, where are you? I'm gonna tell Mac.
Get up out that street.
Stay in that street, you'll become a ghost.
Move a little press here so we can let the traffic go. Come on, guys.
I made it like they're separate. I found out about it from Randall. From Randall? Yeah, Randall. She's like, you missed it. That's it. I would love to do I will say you have to leave your pocket.
I don't think of it as better.
Yeah, it's
Different and they're both fantastic. I have no doubt.
if it wasn't for the freeze, we'd be like, I don't know, like glossy and greasy.
Not even.
Speaking about like,
I think I got answers to you.
I'm really obsessed with like sheep.
Oh yeah.
And I have like a million. I don't know why I bought it. You just walking around with it like.
Okay, Google, turn on flashlight.
Just blinding everybody. It's cool.
Come on up, guys. Please, come on up closer. Come around me. Come on up, please. Come on to the other side. Y'all in the back there, come to the other side. Come closer.
Stop. We got insubordinates over here. Justin.
Guys, this in 1850 was the jail for Savannah.
Give it to him. Give it to him.
Give it to him.
You gave it. Now bring it back.
Now walk.
Now walk.
This will be on what channel?
Ghost Brothers After Dark.
Our website.
So anyway, this was a jail from 1850 to 1970. And when it was originally built, it was considered a very modern facility. Because back in the day, going to jail was not like going to the country clubs. Some of them might be today, especially for white-collar crimes. They didn't have gym facilities. They didn't have computers. They didn't have TVs. There was no libraries. There was no educational programs or rehab programs. Basically, you got put in there, stuck in a hole or a cell, and you stayed there until it was time to get out. And there was no drinking, by the way. No. But anyway, the thing is, back in the day, you put in jail, you were presumed that you needed to be there and treated that way, which meant basically treated very inhumanely, and no care for the health or well-being of any prisoner. They started changing in the late 1800s about that stuff, okay, and became more of a science and things of that nature. But this one was considered a modern facility because of the large openings in the front, an exercise yard in the middle, and the cells had 12-foot ceilings and slanted windows in the back. So it gave a lot of good ventilation. So they had fresh air to breathe instead of the dark, the stank, sickening air that most prisons had back in the day. And you got a period to go exercise instead of just staying in your cell the whole time. So it was very forward thinking. Now, this jail sort of has a relationship to the founding of Savannah, or the founding of the colony in Georgia. George, in 1728, a member of the House of Lords, which is the English version of the Senate, except they have landed titles as well, given down to their families by the kings and queens of England. One of the members of the House of Lords died in prison in England, but not just any prison. It was a debtor's prison. Because back in the day, if you didn't pay your bills, rich or poor, you went to jail, and you did not get out until you paid your bills. You sat there. Now, this gentleman had no money for food or clothing or medicine, so he got sick and died. His friends in the House of Lords got together and they passed this act, basically with the Indentured Servitude Act, which created the whole system of indentured servitude. And it was to give men and women a chance of getting out of prison. Somebody, a third party, paying their debt, and they working for those people for a period of 14 years to pay back their debt to them. So a lot of the colonies were populated with indentured servants, Georgia being the first. It was a cruel system, and it was in any other sense of the word, it was slavery in its own right. But it had a sort of a, what would that word be? It had a noble beginning, just like a lot of things get abused. But anyway, so back in 1740, a girl named Alice Riley was an indentured servant from England, and she came here to the colony of Georgia to work for a man named William Johnson. Now, Mr. Johnson was not allowed to come in 1730 with the original contingent because James Oglethorpe felt he was a man of disreputable and dishonorable reputation. And he didn't want anybody like that being the founding settlers of the colony of Georgia. So in 1745, when he came over, roughly, he came over, he hired his own ship, came over, and he walked off the ship with 2 prostitutes, one on each arm, and set up business and became very wealthy. So Alice was one of his indentured servants, and another one was a man named Richard. Now, I don't want this part filmed because it's like, you know, anyway. It may be too, I don't know if there's people here and don't, you know, think, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. So I appreciate that. Anyway, so Richard did all the manly chores, the repairs and the maintenance and the yard keeping, the grounds keeping and stuff like that. Alice did the cooking and the sweeping and the cleaning and the mopping. But she was also required to bathe Mr. Johnson every night and go to bed with him upon request. In the meantime, Alice and Richard fell in love. And at some point, Richard had about enough of this. You know, he only goes too far. So one night, Alice was giving Mr. Johnson a bath in the tub. Richard comes in and they drown the son. They throw the body in the river thinking it's going to float out to sea. The body comes back. Local people see it. They go to the mansion. Who's missing? Alice and Richard. They took off by horseback. They got about 15 miles out of town at Iowa Hope, got captured, brought back, put in jail. The jail they were put in is where the CBS stands now. That was the original jail in Savannah. And parts of that building are still, the original walls are still there. By the way, when they opened that CBS, it was a 24-hour store. But after a few weeks, they called the region came and did a study and said, you can close at night. Because at a certain time every night, most nights, they found apparitions, ghosts, hanging in the corners of the ceilings looking down. Just not good for customer relationships. So, anyway, so Alice and Richard were arrested, put in jail, and found guilty. The day comes for the hanging. Richard's hung first. Then Alice, the first female ever to be tried and sentenced to death by hanging in the state of Georgia, was put on the gun. And they were fixing to pull that lever and watch her swing, and she says, but I'm with child. So they put her back in jail, let her have her baby, and then they hung her. The baby died 3 weeks later in the jail, never being married, never being named. So to this day, Alice Riley walks the square, right square, looking for her lost child. So anyway, in 1970, this stopped being a jail. The homeless moved in. They didn't stay long. They got right back out because of all the screams and the cries and everything like that, okay? And then SCAD bought it. But we're gonna walk around in the back and I'm gonna explain to you why the homeless couldn't handle it there. What happened that made it so spooky and scary. Come on, guys.
Come on, guys. This will be a quiz later, so I hope y'all
They were in the same group. We might have been. I was looking for you. They were like, no, I didn't see her. I had people like message me. They were like, I looked for you. I didn't see you. I'm like, I didn't see you either. The only thing was there, that was it. And then they got like the name. I didn't hear it, but some people said they got like Ann, and then the one we heard is out. That's all I care about.
Come on down this way a little bit more. Just a circle around, guys.
Excuse me.
Let's go, everybody. Come on. Guys, this area over here was the original dueling grounds. Whoa. Okay?
Who's going across the monkey ball?
So anyway, the back of the building, you can see back here with all the slanted windows. And the spikes on the wall, so the prisoners, when they try to escape, wouldn't have an easy time. There's a tower right there. See that tower, everybody? On top of that tower used to be scaffolding. So if you were sentenced to hang by the neck until dead from 1850 to roughly 1960, that's where you were hung in Savannah, Georgia. Now, hanging used to be a spectator sport, just like UFC and MMA fighting. People all came out the day of the hanging to watch it and see, watch them swing. Now, why is this place so spooky? Haunted. First of all, there are probably a couple hundred people got hung there. Remember when people die a torturous, brutal death? Some of their life force energy stays behind? I think this would qualify. Because most of those bodies were put back in blatant state until they were taken off to be buried. Plus, the other things that happened in a jail, like any other jail would happen, a lot of violence went on in there. So that's why it's so scary. And that's why there's never an event held in there after 12 o'clock at night. It's just safer for the guests.
Wow.
Come on, guys.
Wow, you should hold an event in there.
Sounds like my kind of a place.
Party in there.
That's next year's event.
Right.
Yeah.
See what type of strings we can
I want to see
pull.
somebody hanging from the ceiling or something.
Right.
We're not sure I want like a plane on this playground right here. Can y'all stay away from the ghost part?
Give them some dueling plastic guns or whatever, and have them duel it out.
Over there in the corner.
There's people buried everywhere, so then you
That's good old Christian fun.
park next to the cemetery. And you'll it's not a great place location for a park.
Good job. You got it in. I want to do it for years.
Yeah, it's just gonna get bigger and bigger.
This year is only the beginning.
This year I was actually like financially able to do it.
Next year will be even bigger for you. Better year for you financially. Everything. We're planning. Where at? Hey, you live where? In Austin?
I live in Austin, but I'm going to city into the hill country. I prefer to be in a country city.
Your sister lives in Austin as well? Yeah. More quicker. All right.
Open up traffic.
Well, if he was a drill sergeant in the past.
Right.
You think you'll ever do like an event?
Yeah, somebody asked about going to Houston the other day. We would love to start setting up tours. I know, right?
This way you use this.
Yes, I want to be a Ghost Brothers show. Pretty good.
Literally just a second. Yeah, I know.
I'm just really hot.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Guys, come on.
I'm just really drunk.
You're making it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You good?
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Where do we need to be?
I'm fine.
Right.
Not really like really drunk, but I'm good.
Well, you're on vacation.
Last words. That means we need another bar.
We're getting there soon. Guys, come
Not
on,
soon
guys.
enough.
Let's go.
Right? How about walking toward our hotel?
Well, I don't know. Well, most hotels are that way on the
well.
or on MLK.
Be okay.
The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, a Catholic cathedral, was built in 1850. It cost $125,000 to build. It is gorgeous. You get a chance. It's open in the morning. It's gorgeous to look at. All the gold in there, and all the artwork that's in there, and the tall columns in there, and the archways and everything. It's just a gorgeous building to go into. It had a fire 3 years after it was built, and they had to renovate it and rebuild the interior, and it cost $150,000.
Okay.
In 2000, they renovated the whole thing. They pulled out the stained glass windows, reletted them, did everything. It cost $11 million.
Yeah. Wow.
Inflation.
Yeah.
Quickly, guys, come with me to our next stop, and then we got another bar.
Oh.
There we go.
Here we go. Another bar. Let's go to the next bar. Hey, how was? Did you have the hippie punch? Is it good?
Great.
I bet.
I highly recommend you do. Yes. It's really refreshing. Yeah. I taste no alcohol. I don't That's not good. That's probably a bad thing.
It's in there, the 3 different kinds, I think.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
You don't eat the fruit because that's where it
Goes into.
Well, odd place to be playing. It's an odd place to be playing out here.
Geez, I love these leggings. I love these leggings with the bottom. I need to get me some Halloween leggings for my Halloween party. No, you don't. Yeah, I do. Look how cool they are.
So how often you do tours here?
3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Huh?
if at all.
Is this the Garden of Good and Evil house?
No, it's
No.
not the Mercer Mansion, but it is far out. There's, you're not too far off. Guys, this house is behind us, the Hamilton Turner, is now known as the Hamilton Turner Inn. For many years, it was known as the Hamilton Turner Mansion when it was in private hands. And prior to that, it belonged to many different families. It was built by the first president of the Savannah Electric Company, and it was the first electrified house in Savannah. People used to stand here at dusk taking bets to see if the house would explode in flames. Because just like things politicized today, back in the day you had the gas company and the coal company telling you of the evils of electricity and how it just wasn't safe to have electricity in your home. Okay? They lost out. They lost that one. But anyway, so that's its beginning. It had a variety of owners with very interesting backgrounds. One of the owners, early owners, was a art collector, and he amassed so much art. He was so paranoid about being broken into, because even back then Savannah was a rough town, it was a seaport town. Wasn't always a Disney World-like city like we have today. And the stories we can tell you about that, but we're not going to because it's PG tonight. Anyway, he hired a guard to sit watch on the roof at night with a shotgun. One morning the guard didn't come down. They go up, somebody shot him in the head. So the owner gets up there and holds watch every night instead of sleeping. He dies of a heart attack. And his ghost can be seen on the third floor, my far left on the third floor from time to time, peering out the window. Another family moves in, they have 3 kids. They were very much part of the social scene in Savannah and would host parties. One night they're having a party, the kids were told to stay upstairs and play. They're rolling billiard balls up and down the hallway. One goes down the stairs, the young daughter goes after, tumbles, trips, falls, and breaks her neck. And her ghost could be seen on the second floor. Now, when I first became acquainted with this house personally, it was in November 1991. I had just moved to Savannah, Georgia. A friend of mine was a pianist and had a jazz band, and he invited me over here to a party. And back in the day, this is not 20 years ago, but people were more formal at night when they went out from work to go to parties. Everybody always had suits on and dresses, really nice. And so we went in, and they had a buffet set up, and the liquor bar set up, and a bartender, and the music was going. And I was mingling with people, and I got to meet the owner of the house. Her name was Nancy. Another set of friends also knew her well. We started coming over on a regular basis on the weekend, enjoying her hospitality, hanging out on the roof, smoking cigars and drinking wine, and watching the tourists walk around. By the way, to get upstairs, you have to go through the walls. This old servant stairs were put in the walls of a lot of these homes.
Wow.
So, and we then sit around and watch her, listen to her play the baby grand piano and sing, because in her day she was an entertainer. In her day, her boyfriend, Joe, was a bartender, bar owner and restaurant owner of ill repute. He would open up a place, she would entertain him. He would close it down a year or 2 later, declaring bankruptcy, but never going bankrupt when he went in the mattress. And he just do this over and over. In addition to that, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, most of Savannah, downtown Savannah was boarded up. Were rented out to anybody. Falling apart. Electrical was no good in most of the homes. The roofs were falling in. Nobody lived down here because of the crime. These homes were going to waste. They would squat in these homes, the better of them, and then charge tourists a fee to come into the tour. So between all the shenanigans, they got the money to buy this place and fix it up. Unfortunately, Joe died before it was finally realized. Nancy died a few years ago, and the place was sold, and now it's an inn. And it's $300 to spend the night there. And it's probably the only inn in Savannah I know you just can't go in and say, can I look around? They don't want you to go in. And if you ask if it's haunted, they'll say, heck no, get away. Don't bother us. They don't like the secret or the ghosts coming in.
But you used to party in this house.
Yep. Now, here's the rest of the story about Nancy. In the early 90s, a gentleman named John Brent from New York comes down to write a book about Savannah, Georgia. He meets another couple friends of mine, John and Ginger, who live over by the Mercer House. And John used to be the head of the history department for Armstrong Atlantic State University. And the more they talk, the more John Brent realizes John knows the good stories. John knows where the bodies are laid, pardon the pun. And John tells them about the famous murder trial of Jim Mercer, the preservationist in antique dealers. Back in the day, if you didn't have a piece of furniture from Jim Williams' antique shop in your house, you just weren't cool. And if you weren't on his invitation list for the parties, you really were out. You were not part of the social scene. Everybody loved you, including his gay prostitute lover, boyfriend, Danny. Only thing is, Danny used to push his buttons too much. because Danny was always blackmailing him, trying to get more money out of him and stuff. And one night, Jim had enough. And Danny pushed his buttons. And Jim pulled out a revolver and shot him 4 times. But then he covered it up. When the police came, I just got home, found him dead. The police believed him. It took 4 trials, over $1 million, to finally find him guilty. Now, as the book was written, there was a chapter in there about Joe Odom, the restaurateur, and about his girlfriend, Mandy, who in the movie was played by Clint Eastwood's daughter. But after I knew her, and once the book came out, then I finally realized who she was. Nancy Hillis was Mandy, the girlfriend of Joe Odom, in the book Midnight Garden. It was kind of an interesting.
This is the house from that book.
Yeah, one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not where the murder happened. That's on another square. That's the Mercer house, built for General Mercer back in the day, and Johnny Mercer, the famous writer. So anyway, follow me to the next part, guys.